all you positive heads out there. Brandon Beecham here. As always, thanks for tuning in to the Positive Head podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Barb Schmidt. Barb is a woman of many talents and achievements. To name a few, she's creator of the nonprofit Peaceful Mind, Peaceful Life, which acts as an inspiring online resource and rapidly growing online community. Barb is also the author of the recently published book, The Practice. After just finishing reading The Practice myself, I can personally confirm that she has achieved her mission to teach, inspire, and empower, at least where I'm concerned. So I'm very happy to have the opportunity to talk with her today. Hello, Barb. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Brandon. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
A pleasure to have you. So to jump right in, first off, in The Practice, you reference one of the things that kind of stuck out to me. And, as I mentioned to you before we got started here, I just finished reading it, thoroughly enjoyed it, got a lot out of it that we'll talk about. You reference attending a retreat with the famous Vietnamese Buddhist monk, and I hope I don't butcher his name. Is it Thich Nhat Hanh?
Very good.
And,
yes.
Good. I've been practicing my Vietnamese. And you reference that event as the one that led you to starting Peaceful Mind, Peaceful Life, correct?
Correct.
What can you...
He is probably one of my most profound teachers. As you saw in the book, I have many, many teachers and so many inspirational humans that have really helped me on this path. But when I started reading his books and I decided to go on retreat, when I saw that he was going to be on retreat, and it's a week-long silent retreat, there is something about this man that just like the Dalai Lama, some of these amazing people that really inspire us, and they emanate this peace. There's something about being with him on a retreat for a week in silence that just changed my life. I thought when he talks about walking in peace, and then of course all the great work that he did back in the 60s, it just moved me. It moved me deeply. And I have always had a yearning of my childhood being very traumatic and not so peaceful. I've always had this little inkling that we've got to find a way to have peace. So yeah, he's an amazing, amazing human being. So
it was a silent retreat, you say?
Yeah. A whole week of silence. He spoke.
I have a friend, actually, I'm writing my first book myself right now, and I'm co-authoring it with a friend, and he just so happens to be at his first silent retreat. So I think he's maybe 3 days into, I think it's 10 days total. So I'm really excited to kind of hear feedback from him. I've never done one, but from what I hear, it's just a profound experience across the board. And I can only imagine with someone like him, kind of just being in the presence of someone, that clear and that, tapped in, so to speak.
Listen to him, walking with him, it is, I can't wait for you to hear from your friend. Because I really highly recommend it to everyone at some point in their lives to just try it, because it is unbelievable what you learn about yourself. Wow. It's a life-changing experience to be with Thich Nhat Hanh, but it's a double life-changing experience to be in silence.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think it's something, and I know as a person who has a lot to say and whose mind's always going, 1,000 miles a minute, we're always transmitting. As humans, we're constantly transmitting information, transmitting. And of course, meditation is a great way to try and, receive and quiet the mind. And so doing that for such an extended period of time, I can only imagine that it's, has a profound and lasting effect.
Yeah.
So as far as Peaceful Mind, Peaceful Life itself, it looks like you've had a lot of success with that. Can you tell the audience a little bit about the organization? It's a nonprofit, correct?
Yes, correct. I would love to. When I got out of treatment in the mid 80s, there was something that was unleashed in me about giving back. All of us, there's so many people in the world that do such great work in this idea of giving back. But there was something to me that it started immediately. So philanthropy, and I've started several nonprofits throughout my lifetime. And so doing that, it always has to be in the equation for me when I'm doing my work. It's like, how now can I do this so that I can make things and teachings and all the work that I'm trying to do accessible to everyone. I don't want it to be where you've got to pay $500 to come hear this person speak. So I thought whatever I do in any work that I do in universities right now with Florida Atlantic University, I've been doing for a decade or so, I want it to be accessible to all. So Peaceful Mind, Peaceful Life is that nonprofit. It is that movement, really. As you say, it's really taken off. I thought, what can I do to inspire? So we do inspirational quotes and blogs and things like that. But also, what can I do to help introduce people to all the great teachers of our generation and of the past? So it's really really an offering. And it's such a great blessing that we have social media today, because you really can reach the masses. We're almost to 2.5 million. And what I love the most is I interact with people all over the world. So I can't even think of a better way to spread a message and really try to help people find inner peace, which I believe ultimately will lead to our outer peace.
Absolutely. Yeah, you definitely. Now, how long ago did you actually launch Peaceful Mind, Peaceful Life?
September of 2011.
Wow. So that's really not a very long ago, and to have got the traction that you've, what you said, 2.5 million Facebook followers. I mean, that's certainly something to be very proud of. You're definitely resonating with a broad audience. So I would say you have achieved your goal, and it should be very exciting to see where it goes from here. Now, on the site itself, do you have a way for people to join to participate? Is it mainly you're putting out information and blogs and so forth, or is there an interactive component to it?
It's mainly putting out information and blogs. We have had a Q&A. We've had a couple of Q&As live.
Okay, cool.
Q&As, and we're in the process of doing a lot more. I think people do Facebook message me quite a bit. So we do. I do have a lot of that, but I think as I've watched this grow, and I think people are hungry for interaction, for a way to find sense out of this external world that is pretty chaotic and crazy. So we're in the process of putting together a program and putting together this things that will be interactive.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah. I definitely look forward to that. Now, the practice is, you put the practice out in 2014, is that correct?
May of 2014, that's correct.
Okay, so that's pretty fresh. Tell me about your experience writing the practice, and what inspired you, and whatever you're willing to share about that experience.
It's, if you would have said to me, Brandon, wow, and 58 years old, I would have this massive nonprofit and have written a book, I'd say, oh, no way. When you read the preface of the book, I started off with pretty difficult childhood and young adulthood, suffered from bulimia, but made it. I really succeeded in the business world, owning McDonald's restaurants and having everything externally, but still being incredibly unhappy. So in going into treatment for my bulimia really changed my life. And I think what I really love about life is we have these milestones. We have awakenings all along the way. We don't just have one, but we have one that really starts us, and that's what happened for me. So it put me in this whole path and this whole search for obviously staying in recovery from my bulimia, knowing that it ultimately would kill me, but really trying to get connected to that 11th step of AA, sought through prayer and meditation, to deepen my conscious contact with God as I understand Him or her, was really my foremost mission, passion. How do I do that? So in studying with all these great teachers, I started my own. I believe strongly, Swami Vivekananda said, go inside yourself and ultimately find your own teacher. I'm paraphrasing him, of course. But,
I definitely
so that
agree
idea
with that.
of, not depending on the external world, being inspired by.
I say it all the time.
Yeah, isn't it the truth? So I still was leaning on the outside world a lot for my instruction and tell me what to do and how to get there. So little by little, I believe every being, you tap into your own source within by sitting with yourself every day, and you develop your own practice. So that's what the book is about, as all my studies and my teachings, workshops and lectures that I was doing prior to the book, it's a culmination of all of that I have learned for the past 30 years.
It certainly had a profound impact on me. The thing that there's a lot that I love about it. With meditation, for example, that's one of the big staples, of course. And, you talk a lot about having a structured meditation practice. And, starting in the morning, starting your day that way. And that's something that I've struggled with is, I've always done it sporadically. So I've really been trying to, as I've reading the book, incorporating, setting my alarm clock 15 minutes earlier and starting my day on that foot. And I have found, and I can't say I haven't hit snooze a few times, but what I found the days that I've done it so far, it's really, you just have, as I think you put it in the book, that edge that I think people like you or I can tend to have. We're very, lots of energy, go. And it really is, I can see a difference and feel a difference in myself because I'm starting my day off, kind of rounding out that edge. And it trickles into every other area of your life throughout the day, I believe. So,
yeah. Oh, so true. This is the age of technology. So lately, I've been saying we're used to hearing that we're plugged into our phones and our computers and TV and all the external gadgets that we have. So plug into yourself first before you get plugged into the world. And it does, as you just said so beautifully, it does. It changes you. You start to connect within. You start to develop this incredible capacity to let things be because you're thinking. We can't stop thinking, but we can sit in meditation or sit in silence and assume that stance by focusing on putting our attention on the breath or a mantra or a prayer or a phrase and not engage thought. So you think about how you carry that in your day as I'm training every day, just 5 minutes if you're just starting, because let's face it, if you've never meditated and you sit down, it's crazy. You're like, whoa, I have a big problem here. You start to realize the mind is going constantly. So it's really just little by little connecting with you first. And you start to get that sense that you just said, a feeling of incredible. I like to call it when I meditate, and I've been meditating for 30 years. I like to call it the sense of all is well. So no matter what's happening in this chaotic external world, I don't have to be caught up in it. I certainly can't control it, and that great sense within me of knowing that I can handle anything no matter what is thrown my way makes me feel this sense of peace, strength, courage, compassion, and ultimately we feel that sense of great love.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a friend who recently told me about an app that he started using, and I wish I would have gotten the name of it before this conversation. I'll have to look that up and put it out to the audience another time. But essentially, it allows you kind of like a Fitbit. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. Where you can share your steps in a given day. Your exercise sort of thing. Well, there's a meditation app that he's been using, and I think he sent me an invite to it, and I. Being too busy, haven't downloaded it yet and started using it. But he said it made a real difference for him to, join up with some friends and start, as you put it, 5 minutes a day and then maybe 10 minutes a day. And what he said really worked for him was if you try and start 30 minutes a day, you're going to end up slipping pretty quickly. Just start small, just the same way you put it, 5 minutes a day, something like that. And, one of my favorite teachers, Osho, and this is to paraphrase, you've probably seen or heard this quote before. He says something to the effect of, if you're, you should meditate, 10 minutes a day or something like that. If you're too busy, then you should meditate 30 minutes a day. I think that says a lot. And
I love Osho, yes.
He's got quite the sense of humor. So, now a big theme.
I just want to interject something because what you just said. I just want to say one thing. It's about the practice. It's about practicing, not doing it once in a while, because it's in the practice that you gain the results, the transformation. You start to see, wow, this works. So I was on retreat with the Dalai Lama, and he passed out this Buddhist magazine. And you know how you know when you're being given something that you're meant to be given. I opened it up, to a page that said, "Better to meditate 5 minutes every day than 20 minutes once, or than 2 hours once a week."
Right.
5 minutes every day will lead to, a practice, and will lead to this deep connectedness and knowing that we're all looking for. So, yeah, you're so right. Start small, start manageable, start with something that you can sustain every single day.
It's not so intimidating, and I think you hit on a very good point when you say it's a practice. I think of going to yoga. I attend yoga maybe 3 times a week at this point with my girlfriend, and she's really, really good, and I'm still somewhat amateurish comparatively. And the instructor, and I'll make jokes about it, she always gets the pose right, and I'm over here struggling, and really great instructor. She said, just remember, Brandon, it's yoga practice, not yoga perfect. And I think that really works well for meditation as well. Just committing to the process is, you're 90% there. And so I think people sometimes get intimidated. I don't know exactly what I should be doing, or I'm doing it wrong. Everyone's had that feeling of, I can't meditate. I'm doing it wrong. It's like, no, just by attempting, you have started yourself down a path that is going to lead to changes, very powerful changes in your life, I believe.
Yeah, well said.
Now, a big theme in your book is that I absolutely loved, by the way, is using a sacred mantra. Now, I'm familiar with the idea of mantras and affirmations, but it's kind of one of those things where in my own, spiritual growth process over the last, 18 years or so, I'd say I've been on this path that I'm on. And, it's something that I know of to some degree, but never really given much, thought or attention to. Well, your book helped me to do that. And what was really, really cool for me is I started realizing that I've been using the technique instead of using a sacred mantra, I've been using a song from my childhood camp. When I was 7, 8, 9 years old, I went, to church camp, actually, and we sung these silly, campfire songs, and one of them was, I love molasses, good old country sorghum. And I won't go on for the rest of the song and destroy your ears, but it's just a silly song. And I don't know why especially in the last year or two, it's really just it's just in my head. So what I found I was doing, and really kind of subconsciously, is when I would have an anxious thought or a stressful thought, I would start singing that song. And so it was really a big light bulb went on for me regarding all this when I was reading your book. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this. But instead of invoking this, sacred mantra, which I'll let you explain a little bit here in a moment, I'm invoking this lighthearted kind of silly thing from my childhood. And so it's really, and I've been, using sacred mantra for the last week, and I've absolutely loved it. So it's such an amazing takeaway from your book. It's not always that, I've read lots of books and lots of books that I love, but there's not always something so tangible to take away. And so I want to thank you personally for, putting that information into my world in such a direct way where I know it's something that I'll use the rest of my life now. But aside from that, can you explain a little bit to the audience, what a sacred mantra is and how you would use it?
First of all, Brandon, you just brought the biggest smile to my face and warmed my heart.
Good.
Because I believe so strongly that the sacred mantra is the hidden jewel. It's really the
It's funny because that's the mantra. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but that's the mantra that I chose because of its Om Mani Padme Hum.
Yes.
Or Om Mani Padme Hum. Yeah, because of the interpretation. Behold
the jewel in the lotus of the heart.
Yeah, the jewel in the lotus within. Yeah.
The heart,
so it's like when you're feeling anxious or stressed, it's like, instead look within yourself and you are this divine being. And what a beautiful thing. So that's the one that I've chosen for myself. But sorry to interrupt. When you said jewel, I had to throw that out there.
Yeah, no, Brandon, it's so true. I want everybody to really resonate with this because it is the thing that you use it in meditation and you use it throughout the entire day. It is the thought interceptor. It does connect you. The same mantra, the teachings that I learned from quite a few teachers. It's a practice that Mahatma Gandhi used. It's a practice that many of the great saints and mystics and teachers use. It just is not that common. It just wasn't really talked about so much. But if you really do a lot of research and you really do a lot of reading, we've that word mantra so much. And so what you were doing with your song, it's a phenomenal affirmation because that also is a thought interceptor. It brought you into a gay, happy, joyful
Right.
place. So
Right.
it's the same thing. But what happens with a mantra when you take a phrase or these words that are holy, that are hallowed from the great teachers or traditions, you connect with that ancestry. You connect with the generations of the millions and millions of people that are using that very same thing to bring them back to the present moment, really. The mantra connects and brings you back to the moment. So if I'm afraid or I'm worried and I can't do anything about it, I can ask myself, can I do something about the fear? Can I do something about the worry? And 90% of the time, the answer is no. I can repeat my sacred, brings me right back to the moment, into the present, where I can rest, where I can say, okay, I can't do anything about it, but I can just be here right now. And I believe the mantra, we all know the power of prayer, the power of a collected consciousness of people coming together. And that's
Absolutely.
what the mantra is, I believe. I use Rosa Parks in the book. It moved me to tears when I listened to her interview when they asked her, what gave you the courage to get on that bus that day back during the civil rights movement? And she said, I felt I had the strength of my ancestors behind me. And I get chills even thinking about it today. That's what I feel the sacred mantra is. When I repeat it, it's all of those amazing, beautiful people that are using that very same phrase or word connecting within. So Mahatma Gandhi is known to have, when he was assassinated, when you read his biography, it is known that the words on his lips were Rama, Rama, Rama.
His sacred mantra, right?
And I put the word sacred in front instead of just calling it a mantra because it's so, in my opinion, mantra.
I think it's appropriate.
And it's holy, it's sacred, it's all these people using it. And so I am so thrilled that is something that you took away from the book, because I find it one of the more transformational things that I have ever done in my life.
Yeah. Like I said, it just is one of those things where you said it earlier, when you get something and you know that you're meant to get that information, it's like, oh, wow, this is for me. This is, this works so well with who I am and where I'm at. And, it's almost been a point of frustration because I'm this person who's such a, as a relative of mine always says, the eternal optimist, and so much positive energy all the time. But then all of a sudden, there'll be these sprinklings of doubt or negativity, or and I think everyone has those sorts of things. And for me, it's like, no, that's not what I want to be or where I'm at. And how do I prevent this or work with this in a loving way? Because when you resist something, of course, you create more of it. So it turns into a little bit of a troubling thing to figure out how to work with. And like I said, I just used this, and I really wasn't that consciously aware. That's what I started to become in recent even months, that consciously aware, I guess, to some degree, that I was like, I notice I'm doing this song as an answer every time. And before that, for, months and months and months, I wasn't even really aware that I was doing it. And so now having something, and I couldn't agree more, when you use something that is, sacred in the sense that spiritual seekers for, centuries have used, and it's been used by countless people who've already gone down the road that you're going down. You invoke, their energy and their wisdom. We're all connected, and it's so. I think it brings an element. It's like they're all with you in a sense, is what I kind of feel when I'm using it. And like I said, it's only been a few days for me, but I can see this is something that I will use for the rest of my life. So I'm very grateful, and I encourage everyone out there listening to this podcast, check out the practice. And you even have some of the information on your website in regards to the mantras as well, I believe. It's something that you definitely want to explore using. So now
they do become your friend. You're right. You're evoking, the Om Mani Padme Hum, the beautiful mantra of Buddhism, but many other people use it besides Buddhists. I mean, it's my daughter uses that mantra, and she feels this connectedness with such peace and such beauty. It's such, I can't say it enough of how much you really start to walk. And what I wanted to say was that you will now find that this will be coming into your head. You won't even, after a time, you'll find that it's coming
in my
to you
head
without
a lot.
you even repeating it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
I find myself just like singing it as I'm walking around the house doing whatever. It's like, it's definitely, it's almost like something that you use, as your background music. To some degree. And like I said, I'm very new with using it. I know you've been practicing yours for 20 years or so. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, a couple
and
of
you
decades.
also,
but the beauty of the mantra, though, is the sacred mantra is you can feel it right away.
yeah, for sure. I can vouch for that. You also talk in your book about writing it out, and you did some beautiful art that almost looked like sacred geometry with your own mantra, which is a different. Now, keep in mind, people, as you're listening, what Barb recommends is finding one that really works for you. There, and I think in the book and on the website, you have several different ones from different traditions and all around the world. And that's kind of what I did. I went through. I really liked the Native American one as well. And you just find the one. And I think what Barb recommends in the book is you maybe try one out for a few days if you want to, then try a different one. But you'll know when something really resonates with you. And but you also practice writing it out as well, correct?
Correct. It's one of the greatest joys of my life. I love incorporating it into art, making the mandalas with my mantra. It's just a way to. It really is a practice of sitting with it. It's a practice of being with your mantra, and it's a when you write it out. I write my mantra every single day, and mostly it's become a practice now over all these years of writing it trying to send out. And my way of helping and sending out loving energy to crises. So, I've been writing my mantra for the tragedy in Paris, or I'll write my mantra for the tragedy in Nigeria recently, or the tragedy in when we had the earthquake in Haiti. I live in South Florida. I spent an hour just writing my mantra as a way of really being one-pointed, really focused on that energy of those powerful words and trying to send that loving energy out into the people of Haiti for that particular situation. That they find the ability to find their own strength and their own courage within to handle whatever it is they're handling. And I can't tell you how, until you experience it, it's a real moving experience to really, with a very focused attention, writing your mantra, knowing that this is for relief or for comfort or for love and compassion that you're sending to others. I write in the book that I did it for myself to start with, for my daughter and myself when she went off to college, because I was so worried. She's my only child, and what's going to happen? What's going to happen in that scary place called college? And it not only transformed me, it made our relationship so great because it helped. It helped intercept those negative, crazy thoughts I was having about what could happen to her there. And I believe it sent love and peace and compassion over to her as well. So try it out. I really recommend it.
I think that's a really key point that you've made, is using it as a way to send, love and energy to, crisis situations and so forth. I think people don't always realize how much power they have to affect situations remotely. I mean, without going into all the studies, I'm sure where you have the crime rate in DC lowered by, I forget how many percentage it was off the top of my head, but a drastic reduction in crime with people meditating on peace in that region. And I think the sheriff or police chief of DC said it would have to snow in July for that much, crime reduction. I think it was like 30% or something like that. And sure enough, by the end of the experiment, that's exactly what had happened. So I think that's a really beautiful thing that you're doing, and a great way to incorporate it into, the mantra, into, expanded way to use it.
We all ask ourselves when something horrific or when something heartbreaking happens, what can I do? I wish I could do something. So instead of worrying and ruminating about it and feeling bad about it, by using this sacred mantra in this way, you're actually feeling the feelings of the hurt or the heartache that the people or the country is going through, but then you're also feeling
Right.
and like you're actually doing something. You really are making a difference, and you really are giving them your whole heart and all of your love in trying to find peace and trying to find some sense of connectedness. So it is a really big something that we can do.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I have, I go to a lot of, living in California, there's a lot of these transformational music and art festivals, and I love attending them. It's a lot of, workshops and great music, and, a lot of times people who are really just, not only people that are very experienced in this kind of spiritual realm, I guess you would say, but also a lot of people are just getting exposed through these festivals for the first time. And so one of the fun, projects that I did and I take with me to festivals is a staff, and I put a amethyst crystal on top of it, and it kind of looks like a sorcerer's staff, and people will come up to me, and it glows and everything. And so people will come up to me in the evenings, usually when I'll bring it out and, turn it on, and you have people who are just like, oh my gosh, that's the most beautiful, thing I've ever seen. And so whenever someone approaches me, I always tell them, well, crystals are amplifiers of energy. And, as Nikola Tesla put it, and to paraphrase, crystals are living entities. Whether or not we understand the nature of their reality, they're living, nonetheless. So this particular crystal and staff I designed with the intention of sending whatever's in your heart and mind to everyone, in this crowd here. And so people will always, their face will just light up when I kind of say that and hand it to them, and then they'll take it, and sometimes they'll take it for 30 seconds, and sometimes they'll want to take it for 30 minutes, and you'll close their eyes usually, and they're sending out, these heartfelt, loving intentions to everyone that's in attendance,
So
in the
powerful.
audience. It is so powerful, and you can just see how much people enjoy that process. And then, as I say now, I built it maybe a couple years ago, so it's probably had 200 people, do this process now. So it is all that love and intention, I believe, is encoded in this crystal. And it's kind of the same thing with these words. You have all these beautiful souls that have used these same words over, centuries to, raise their own vibration and the vibration of the people around them. And now you're invoking that, and it truly is. Words are, they're spelling. You're casting a spell, right? So I think it's really, really cool, not only to use for yourself, but then to start then turning it to others. And
beautifully said, Brandon. Beautiful.
So, next question I have for you is in regards to workshops. I know you've studied under some very notable spiritual teachers. We've already talked about a few: the Dalai Lama, Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, or a few others. Correct?
Yes, correct. And Pema Chodron and James Finley, the Thomas Merton scholar, former monk James Finley. I mean, he's so amazing. Yeah, it's a passion of mine. I love being with these great teachers and learning from them and being inspired. Being the teacher,
being the student as well as the teacher, as we all are, I think. Who would you say is your favorite? And I don't know, maybe that's a loaded question that, but if you had to pick, one particular,
Wow, that I've been asked that before, and it's so hard because
I know,
you're on a spiritual path. You're always at a different place in each segment of your life, each moment of your life. So the teachers that have really inspired me, the ones that I talk about so much in the book, are the ones that I was meant to be with at that moment in my life. I mean,
Absolutely.
I still read Thich Nhat Hanh, and I spend a lot of time in his writings and his work, but I haven't been on retreat with him since those two retreats that I did back in, it was about 1994 and 95. So
okay.
It's hard to say. I can't pick just one because they've all deeply affected me and have had a profound impact on my life, each one. I mean, of course, to be in the presence of the Dalai Lama for a week is, I have so many friends that have heard him speak, and they'll say to me, Barb, we can't understand what he's saying. And I said, you don't need to. Just be in his presence is enough. Or to be in the presence of Thich Nhat Hanh, or to be in the presence of any of these great teachers. I mean, I when I studied all of these great writings and religions and spiritual teachers, I really spent a lot of time with Thomas Merton. So when I ran across James Finley, it was so amazing to be with him and listen to him talk about Thomas Merton being his mentor, his teacher, and his spiritual director. So
right.
I can't really pick one.
I kind of assumed that might be the answer. And, I was just really my own curiosity to just see if there was anyone that maybe stuck out.
What I love about the fact that I can't pick one and that I've never just settled on one is a testament to Swami Vivekananda's idea and his true belief that we must find the teacher within. We must become our own teacher, as you said, as well as continuing to always be a student. So the fact that I haven't settled in just one really says that we are meant to find our own way with all these great teachings, but ultimately finding the practice that works for us and finding something that we can sustain every day and really becoming our own teacher, really transforming ourselves from the inside out. So I think maybe that is also why I can't just pick one, because there hasn't been just one that has only impacted me. That's
a very wise answer, and I couldn't agree more. It's like I've drawn on so many different people for information, but at the end of the day, and I always say it to other people when I get on this conversation, which is my favorite conversation, but don't listen to me. Just be open enough to explore for yourself and go within, because at the end of the day, that's really any of us came here with was our own hearts and minds. So it would make sense that, maybe a book can point to some truths, and maybe a person can point to some truths, and maybe there's some untruths mixed in at times too. But at the end of the day, it's going within, and that's why I think meditation is such a key factor in this whole process, because that's exactly what you're doing. You're going within, and when you set that intention to I want to understand more about the ultimate nature of reality and my role in it, that's what you'll get. And and at the same time, you're not giving your power away to some other person. This person's a guru and they're somehow superior. Anyone who's truly an enlightened master, I think they've all said the same thing. You'll do great, Jesus, you'll do greater things than I. And, things, and Buddha said a similar statement. It's within all of us, that Christ consciousness or Buddha consciousness, and we're all just striving to find our own unique form of it.
Because if you get wrapped up in the teacher, you are still being attached to and depending on the external.
Yep.
And I think all those great teachers, Jesus, the Buddha, all of them, Krishna, all of them were all about, go inside and connect within, go inside and really, listen to the voice and the strength and the source. So it you're right. It doesn't, it empowers you. It makes you feel more powerful and ultimately makes you feel complete. And you start to really recognize how loving and amazing you really are.
Yeah. And that's really been my only issue with organized religions, when I get on this topic, and I have no major issue. I think from the ultimate perspective, it's all perfect. It's all serving as a tool and a platform. But it tends to, people, put this barrier between themselves and source or God or whatever you want to call it. And there is no barrier. It's a direct connection. It's like so close, people are missing it, and they're scrambling, looking external of themselves for this thing that lies within. And so
the first book that I read when I got out of treatment was The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck. And one of the things he said that touched me, and I ended up going on retreat with him, was God has no grandchildren. And that has always stayed with me for 30 years, because we have to have our own connection with God, source, love. We can't have a connection through someone else. We have to have our own connection. So we are the child. We are the source. We are getting connected to the source. We can't go through someone else to get that connection.
They can
inspire us, but they really can't be our conduit. We have to find that ourselves.
Yeah, that's a really profound statement. I like that. So moving on a little bit, we talked a little bit about your Facebook page. I noticed you recently posted a link saying that you were excited to announce the launch of Zen Sports. That was caught my attention. That's a very interesting concept, putting those two things together. What can you tell me about that?
Well, I am, I was the oldest of 5 children, and I think my dad thought I was going to be a boy. So
right.
I ended up being the daughter that was really into sports. He would teach me. He was a football player for Purdue University. He was a right guard. And so I really got into football, basketball, and I just love the idea of sports. I love the idea of teamwork. But as I've grown now into an adult, and as I've grown into my life, and watching what's been happening with the NFL and watching what's been happening around, it came to me, watching the Seattle Seahawks last year, with their whole, Russell Wilson was showcased in Yoga Journal magazine. They do yoga, they do meditation, and I thought, they can learn how to have their peak performance on the field, and they can learn how to really be the best human being off the field as well. And I truly believe that the problem with the things that we're hearing with sports today, with these athletes, is that they haven't been taught. They don't know. They don't have the tools. They don't have the ability to stop, to intercept that anger and take a pause and say, wait a minute, I don't want to hurt this person, or I don't want to say this awful thing, or the money that I'm making is not really the end of what it is I'm supposed to be doing with my life. So it just has inspired me in the past year or so to how can I take this to schools, to athletes. So
a lot of times athletes are so laser focused on becoming a master of their craft. It's like, they're taught there's no room for anything else. Forget your social life, forget, having a relationship, forget, it's like pounded in these kids' heads, and then they come up, sure. Oftentimes, with enough dedication and all those things, they become masters of their craft. But what are they missing? And I think that's a really interesting concept.
And the other thing too, what better people? I mean, athletes. You just said it so greatly. Athletes are disciplined. Athletes are focused. Yeah, athletes have structure. So if they've
already got the raw tools.
They've got it. Yeah. So if they took on a meditation practice, oh my gosh, they could have the same greatness in their personal lives that they've had on the field or in their athletics. So they're ripe for it. They're the perfect candidate for really making their personal lives just as magnificent and just as trophy worthy or Super Bowl worthy or any of those NCAA championship worthy. And
it'll probably help them craft to achieve those things. Really. So
you're in California, right?
Right.
So read up on Joe Montana. See, I date myself because I'm way back. Joe Montana, when he won.
Yeah, he's one of the greats.
Yeah, and you read one of his interviews, and he said, "I was in the moment." He came back and won there in the last 30 seconds or whatever it was. They asked him, "How'd you do it?" And he said, the fans were cheering, and I blocked all that out, and I was in the moment, knowing exactly what I needed to do."
Right.
So it helps. It would help even better their performance on the field, but even more importantly, it would make their personal lives just so much richer and greater and happier.
Absolutely. Very interesting. I love that concept.
Yeah.
Now,
so stay tuned. There's going to be a lot on
it. I will. Now, you also conduct workshops yourself.
Yes.
Correct? How often do you do that? And, what is it like? If I were to attend a Barb Schmidt workshop, what would I experience?
It's 3 hours, and I'm actually doing a couple next week, and then in the process of trying to plan them across the country through this nonprofit Peaceful Mind, Peaceful Life. But it's 3 hours. I'll take a subject next week. It's how, with all of the chaos and the negativity and the anguish that's happening in the world today, how can we find our balance? How can we find the patience and the will and the courage to really know that we are incredible human beings, and we can't control the external world, but we can keep putting one foot in front of the other. So it's about 3 hours of that, and I'll take the practice, and it's very interactive. We'll do some mantra exercises. We'll do some focused attention exercises. We'll meditate a couple of times during the 3 hours and really talk a lot about the practice. How do you practice a meditation? And really get very, very personal about it, but also very hands-on. And then the last part of the practice of this whole letting go. What does that look like? And why do we really want to not be attached? I talk a lot. We don't live in a cave. We're not nuns and we're not monks. We are living in the world. So how do we live with abundance without attachment? So I go into a lot of strategies and tools and real hands-on activities that we can do to practice that we can be our greatest self right where we are in the lives that we're living. Wow, that's fun. I love it.
I love how hands-on it is. It's something that and it's much like the book. It's like, here's some very tangible things that you can take away. You're going to leave here today and you're going to have tools that help you, on your way. And I think that's really important sometimes. A lot of information out there. It's like, okay, that's great. And I'm really feeling it and resonating as I read it or hear about it. But then, is there something that I can really grab onto? And so.
And it's $25.
That's great.
It's not,
wow.
It's really
that's
about.
Really, really reasonable.
Yeah.
That says a lot about your intention. So that's beautiful. Now, you said you're going to be touring with your workshop. Are you going to make it this far by chance?
I love California. I mean, obviously, California to me is like the mothership of all these spiritual practices in a way. So yes, in the process, when I did a talk at East West Books in Menlo Park, there's a magical sense when you get to California, and I went to the Redwoods and just really spent some time up there. And so yes, California will absolutely be on the list.
Oh, well, I will certainly be in attendance when you're in this neck of the woods. And if I'm out that way, I will keep a close eye. All the workshop dates and so forth are on the website, I'm assuming.
They will be on the website, and those are not up yet, but they will be. Okay.
Wow, very exciting. Now, you're also the founder of the Spirit of Giving Network, is that right? And it brings together nonprofits in Florida primarily. Am I saying that correct?
Yes, that is correct. My husband and I, when my daughter was really little, we used to do a Christmas party every year, and we'd invite all of our friends, and it got to be quite large. And you know how people will always bring you a gift. They're coming to your house, so they want to bring you something. So the parties were getting, 200-300 people, and everyone would leave, and I would have all of these things that people had brought me that I don't, most of us don't really need anything. We pretty much are very fortunate. So I thought, what can I do? So I started asking people to bring something for the nonprofits in our community, and there are quite a few. And I ended up with 2,000 that first year. I had 2,000, I had bicycles and basketball.
Wow.
And little cars, and amazing. So I called some of my friends that ran the nonprofits, and I said, what am I going to do with all of these? So I thought, maybe if we had an organization that brought all the nonprofits together, that they could share resources. So it's been about 12 years old now, and it's unbelievable. Wow. Over 70 nonprofits come together once a month to talk about how can we share resources. I've got a bus, and you need a bus to take your kids to swimming. So it has been so amazing that we've had our first college football game here at the stadium. In our university called the Boca Bowl, and all of the proceeds. After all the profits, after all the expenses for that Boca Bowl went to the Spirit of Giving Network to help all of these nonprofits. They need help. The government can't supply all of the needs that they are in need of, all the funding that they're in need of. So this is a beautiful way to share and to collaborate. There's so much beauty in collaborating because we can't do it alone. We need each other. So it's been a great honor for me to see this flourishing so well.
That's really something to be proud of. That's incredible. Do you see it as something that would possibly spread beyond the Florida borders?
Yeah, the person that's running it, I've asked her, I said, what have you ever thought about doing some kind of a workbook or some kind of a guide book that you could spread this and pass this along. So they're exploring that idea because, we have to collaborate. We are not an island. We must work with each other. And because there really isn't enough money, there are not enough resources to go around for everyone to have all of their needs met. But when we work together, we can get all of our needs met. So I think it's something that they're truly looking at to see if they can use this as a model across the country. It really would be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's much like you mentioned, the whole team, it's the same thing as with sports. The sum is greater than the equal parts. And I think that's just a brilliant idea. And I look forward to seeing that continue to grow. That's awesome. So you've obviously been at this a while. You've been on your spiritual path, if I recall from the book, since the early 80s. Have you noticed, I ask this question often, because myself, it's been about an 18-year path for me. And, I always reference when I first started down this road, I was reading lots of books and I was just so excited and amped about this, this subject. And I would talk to people, about spirituality and things like this. And I would get, okay, that's interesting. Or, you're crazy. One of two responses. And just in the last few years myself, I've started just meeting so many people, who will talk more about it than I will. And I would have never imagined that before. It was like, it was always just reading. I think what you did is pretty interesting. You went out and actually, you read a book and then would go and meet the person and participate in the retreats and so forth. So you probably had more exposure than I did. But for the longest time, as you referenced, a few minutes ago, I truly did feel like an island. And now I just so many connections with people who are on a similar path. Have you noticed, a shift in your world, and from your perspective in planetary consciousness in recent years?
Oh my gosh, yes. A really resounding yes. And it's so wonderful. I think what's happened is the external world, seemingly because of this social media, because of us instantly getting news and information, the external world, I feel, is becoming scarier. And people are feeling the negativity more. They're feeling a need to combat that. What do I do about this? And the only thing you can do is to start really connecting with yourself from within, where all of that power and all of that source of calm and peace and knowing is, because the external world is changing all the time. So I think people are really heightened about that. They're really sensitive to that now, and they're searching and they're desperately saying, you know what, maybe there's something to this meditation that I've been hearing about, but not really wanting to really know about. So I really think people are hungry, and I think it's such a beautiful thing. They say that, things come back around, and what, the Hindus believe that every time the world needs a teacher, when we're really desperate enough and we really need a teacher, one shows up. So you've got, all the great Jesus, the Buddha, Mahatma Gandhi, all those great teachers that were of our past. Well, I think our times are now that we need all of us to wake up. I don't know if there's going to be one great teacher. I think we're all great teachers needing to wake up ourselves, and that little by little, that Gandhi quote, "Be the change." Little by little, we will all be waking up the planet, waking up each other by waking up ourselves first. So I think that's what's happening. I think that's why you're noticing, that people are talking more to you. You used to be the one, or, for a while, especially in the 80s, I rarely talked about it. And I really thought to myself, I'm going to quietly change the world. I'm going to quietly go about doing what I need to do to save myself and help myself. And now realizing that that's what's going to help the world. So yeah, I love it. We're in now. We're in fashion now.
Exactly. That's the thing. I mean, even with, this, really young people, once again, I can reference the kind of transformational festival scene, it's like the cool thing. And it's so funny because, it's really great. It's just, the last couple of years, it's just been such a whirlwind for me. And I'm just, shocked. I guess I'm not as surprised as I was at first, but at first I was like, oh man, so many people all of a sudden are in my world that, get it and don't think I'm just some lunatic. So it's nice. Brandon, when I was writing the book, my husband, we've been married for
23 years. And my husband said, I just want to ask you a question when you're writing this. Are you, because I've studied with some deep, deep teachers. He said,
Right.
Are you going to try to get Buddhists and people that are already meditating to meditate more? Or are you going to write this book so that I will start meditating? After I picked myself up off the floor, I thought,
Right.
oh my gosh. And I said, Dick, would you really consider meditating? He said, of course I would. So that
Wow.
says it all, exactly what we're
Wow.
saying, that, the consciousness of people are starting to wake up, and there has to be a better, more meaningful, more courageous way to live. We can't live in this fear and this negativity and survive. We can survive possibly, but we certainly can't thrive.
Well, I had a friend tell me recently, and I thought it was really profound, and you probably heard a similar statement before. In any given moment, you have a choice. Is it going to be fear or love? And that says it all. So, and I think the mantra really helps with that. If you're having a fear-based thought, you bring it back to this loving, mantra that helps instantly adjust your vibration. So now,
beautiful said, Brandon. Exactly.
Well, once again, I'm just very grateful that it's something that was put in my lap, and I was able to really just right time, right place for me to incorporate it into my life. So I thank you again. Now, as I love to talk about positive paranormal stories or synchronicities. Oh, speaking of a little synchronicity, with my the mantra that I chose, I was telling my girlfriend a little bit about it. Then we went to put on some music, some really relaxing meditative music one night, and a friend had told me about an artist, so I said, let's check this particular artist out. She had like 5 albums. Her name is Wah, W-A-H. I just happened to pull up one of her albums, and what do you know? One of the first song that I see is Om Mani Padme Hum.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, there's a cool synchronicity. So I love stories of synchronicity, what I call positive paranormal stories, because you see so much negative stuff, programming on TV where it's, some really scary, frightening experience that people have had. I personally had quite a few really empowering, positive experiences. And so I always ask my, guest if they have any particular story that they may want to share, and any, of course, that helped guide you to where you are today would be great too.
I feel like, the biggest one, probably the biggest thing that happened to me in starting Peaceful Mind, Peaceful Life, as I said, it was, being on retreat with Thich Nhat Hanh. But not too long after that retreat, and I'd been meditating for a while, I had a dream that night, and I dreamt that I was brokering peace between the Dalai Lama and Chairman Mao.
Oh, wow.
And it was so real. And I remember being in this dream saying, can I really do this? But I have to do it. Can I really do this?
Yeah.
This is the Dalai Lama and Chairman Mao, and there is no peace over there. There is no.
Right.
Can I really do this? And the voice kept saying, you have to do this. So it was that one more affirmation for me that peace and really helping people find inner peace that will lead to the outer peace is what I was called to do. So I feel strongly that people, when you sit with yourself, when people can spend some time with yourself and you really get connected, you're going to know what you came here to do. The Buddha said, do what you came here to do. You came here to do something, do it.
Right.
Don't leave the planet without doing it. So that dream was incredibly powerful, incredibly real. And it really, kind of set things in motion for me that, I can do this. Not only can I do it, I have to do it.
It gave you the strength. Yeah. I think the dream state is something that is, often overlooked. I think if people were more open to the idea that they can have a profound, dream that affects their life, or, information is shared with them, maybe, sometimes you have people who have prophetic dreams, or, other times it's just like, hey, here's where you're supposed to be focused. And, it's almost like a sense. You hear the story and it's one thing, but having felt what I can imagine having felt what you felt in the moment when you woke up, it's probably just like a long lasting, energy that's attached to it. So very cool. So
good.
where do you see yourself in 5 years? What are your future plans?
Continuing to do the same thing, just one person at a time, one workshop at a time, one inspirational message or quote at a time, and launching these initiatives like Zen Sports. I have workbooks that I'm doing right now. I'm teaching I'm teaching the practice to autistic adults. I'm doing a program with one of my friends here, and it's unbelievable. It is so, talk about those young adults being my teacher. And I've got a practice that I'm teaching in the local high schools, trying to help kids, trying to disconnect 1 minute before they start their day. So I see more of that, more of the unfolding of really trying to see where this can benefit and how I can be of help and be of service to helping people wake up and find that sense of connectedness within.
Well, you're certainly a huge inspiration, and you've got a lot of irons in the fire. Very busy woman. So I think, your lifestyle is a testament to the energy and success that you have. I mean, you can just hear it, in your voice. And so, you're definitely an inspiration to me, and I'm sure to all of the audience. So I thank you so much for joining me today. Last little question that I have for you, I like to throw out. In 60 seconds or less, and you can go over if you want, but I have roughly 60 seconds. What's the meaning of life to Barb Schmidt?
We are the meaning of life. Life has meaning when we wake up to who we are. I was so asleep for so many years. So who we are when we wake up to the magnificence, the love, the compassion, the strength, the courage, the purity of who we are from the inside. That's everything in life. The waking up. How can I become conscious? How can I become aware? And how can I really see, that avatar? I see you. Absolutely. I see me and I see you. So when you really have that deep connection of seeing and of knowing, that's the meaning of life.
Yeah, one of the quotes that I read in your book, and let me see if I can pull it up here real quick. Imagine that every person in the world is enlightened but you. They're all your teachers, each doing just the right things to help you learn perfect patience, perfect wisdom, and perfect compassion. Anthony DeMello. That's what a profound, way to approach life. You're not, yes, we're doing some level of teaching, but we're more students than anything, all of us, I believe. And, if you can approach every person, even that ignorant person, from one perspective that just cuts you off on the road, or, you have another great story about, an altercation in a parking lot, and the person had no idea why you were doing what you were doing and treating you, unkindly. And so, I think just having that humility that you obviously have, and, it's quite the journey that we're on.
That quote, Carl Jung, too, really changed my life. That idea that your vision will become clear when you look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. And, the meaning of life is awakening to the fact that you are complete. You are whole. Right. You already have everything that you need inside of you.
It's a matter of remembering it, right?
Amazing life. Yeah. So that's a really beautiful place to end, Brandon. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Barb. This has been such a pleasure, and I look forward to catching up with you at one of your workshops and watching all these things that you're doing grow and following your progress. And maybe we'll do another one of these down the road next year or something like that. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. I love meeting you, and the work you're doing is just amazing. So I look forward to our paths crossing again and connecting and really doing our part to wake ourselves up and wake up the world. So thank you, Brandon. It's been a joy today.
Thank you so much, Barb.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye. You too. Okay, thank all of you guys for tuning in to this podcast. Until next time, remember, as long as you ain't dead, you're already positive ahead. Have a good one, everyone. Be well.